Insanity has taken over this business about the Japanese nuclear power plants and the question about its risk. For example, a big tweet went out all across the Philippines saying that the country is in an imminent danger against the radioactive wind blowing towards the Philippines, and therefore people should just go home and shut themselves up. And many people believed it, which is completely absurd. The way that the media is going about propagating the news or so-called news about the risk of the Japanese reactors is completely out of proportion. For example, it's being said that, well, it is worse than the 3 Miles Island and it's up there or close to the explosions that happened in Chernobyl back in 1986, which is absolutely absurd. First, what happened in Chernobyl was something that we came to know about only after there were radioactive rain in parts of Western Europe. The Russians, for a week, said absolutely nothing, not just to the outside world, even the people who were working in the plant knew nothing about the radioactivity that were just covering them from head to toe. Most of the firefighters in that Chernobyl plant did not have the proper protective gear. At the end, there were a lot of people, probably several thousand people, got radioactive contamination and died. Now, what is happening in Japan? It's completely different. The radioactive leak that has happened is was probably 10 to 100,000 times larger in Chernobyl. Why is that? Because most of it that the Japanese are handling are of the isotopes with very high atomic weights. So if you have uranium and plutonium as opposed to radioactive carbon, it does not propagate across a wide geographical area. So any kind of radioactive contamination that's happening in Japan, it's staying close to the ground. And the explosions that are seeing in the television and other media are not necessarily and probably not are of the explosion that occurred in Chernobyl. Chernobyl was a different matter altogether. Here in Japan, the warnings that are being given out are for safety reasons, and therefore we should not make a great deal out of the fact that they are saying people within 30-mile or 50-mile radius have to stay indoors. The amount of radiation all around are barely above what we get as background radiation anyway. So this insane idea that the Americans have to buy these iodine pills to beat the radioactive material is absolutely and utterly insane. But that is happening. Part of it is because media is blowing this thing up. And that applies not just your uh, yellow page journalists, but also the mainstream journals, mainstream newspapers like the New York Times or the BBC. They are also accomplices to this whole blowing up of events.